Savelle for your cheerleader of dreams. Hey, as you invest in yourself today, I pray that you are captivated and you're catapulted to live your dreams. In fact, if you've never subscribed to this podcast, just push the little red button right there to get consistent teaching tools and tips to help you live your dreams. In fact, today I want to talk about go hunt your dream. You know, dreams don't just happen. We literally have to go after them. And this is a dream for me, even being where I'm at today in the beautiful city of Paris, France. I'm right here at the famous Sacré-Cœur Cathedral overlooking the city. Now, this is a dream that I had to go hunt. You know, it doesn't stop once you make a vision board and you put your dreams and goals on that board. You then have to take action and go after it. And you may have heard me share in the past how I started this dream with a map of France, putting a map literally on the wall and praying over the nation and asking God for opportunities. Well, but it didn't stop there. You know, my dream was to get my books written, get them translated in French, speak at conferences over here. Well, you know, last night we spoke at a conference here in Paris, standing room only, packed out. The books are translated in French, and I'm living that dream. Well, I don't want to talk about me. I want to talk about your dreams. What is it that God's put in your heart that it's time for you to get up and go hunt your dream? In fact, I heard someone say, you know, every day in Africa, a gazelle wakes up and knows that it must outrun the fastest lion or it'll be eaten to death. They said every day in Africa, a lion wakes up and knows that it must outrun the fastest gazelle or it'll starve to death. They said either way, when you wake up, you better be running. Well, people have said, you know, the worst day in heaven would be when God gives you a glimpse of all that you could have had, all that you could have done, and all that you could have been. But for some reason, you just stopped. You just settled somewhere when you know deep inside God has more for your life. Well, you know, I think about that story in Genesis when Abraham and his father set out for Canaan land. Now, Canaan land was the promised land, the land of abundance, the land of more than enough. And the Bible talks about how Abraham's father stopped along the way and settled in Haran. Now, when you just take out all those other words, Haran and all that, think about these two words, stopped, settled. Stopped and settled. Well, that's never God's plan for any of us, that we just stop somewhere when we know the vision is down there. Never stop and settle when God has more for your life. You know, I was listening to a story about a young girl named Lisa who was diagnosed with dyslexia, and she said in her English class, her teacher actually said, "You are the weakest writer I have ever had in my entire life." Now, can you imagine a teacher saying that? But her English teacher told her that. Her speech teacher told her, "You should never," she said, "I do not recommend that you ever speak in public. In fact, you need a desk job." Well, she grew up, you know, of course, with those insecurities, inferiorities, and she grew up in South Central LA, surrounded by gangs, by violence. And she said, "I was so determined to not get into that criminal lifestyle." She said, "I saw my friends get in relationships with gang members and just settle for that life, that mentality." And she said, at 27 years old, she met a man who wasn't in the criminal background, fell in love, the man of her dreams. 28 years old, they had their first little boy. She said when her son was 8 months old, all of a sudden her whole world came crashing down when she got this phone call that her dream guy was in jail and was being sentenced to prison. She said, "Everything I tried to avoid was happening at once. Here she is trying to avoid gang life, criminal activity, and then here's the man of her dreams going to prison." Well, she said she was destitute. She had nothing. She has an 8-month-old little boy. And she said the worst day in her life, she's on government aid, and she finds out she literally had $12 to her name. And she said, "I had to make a decision. Do I buy diapers for my baby or do I buy food for us?" Well, of course, she had to buy food. And she said it was just such a horrible feeling, but it marked her for the rest of her life. When she sat there with her little baby and had to wrap him up in towels because she couldn't afford diapers. And she said, "I'll never forget rubbing my little baby's tummy and telling him, 'Mommy will never be this broke or this broken ever again.'" And she said, that day I made a decision and she began to hunt for her dream. She said, first of all, she started finding mentors. People who were doing what she wanted to do, people who had what she wanted to have. She said she started reading their books. She started listening to messages, going to conferences. She said, I went to the same conference 40 times because I wanted to get it drilled in me. Then she said she would work all day at a job, like 9 hours a day, go home, and she turned her closet into an office. And she said she would sit there from 6:30 at night until midnight most nights, just reading, learning, educating herself. She said everybody I would listen to would tell me, you need to save a little bit of money from every paycheck. So she said I opened up an account and called it Funding My Dream. And every paycheck, she would put a little bit in there, just a little bit at a time. She said she was stunned when years later she checked that account and had $62,500, just a little bit at a time. Well, that little girl, Lisa, whose teacher told her, you are the weakest writer I've ever met in my entire life, she has now written 7 books translated in 20 languages around the world. The speech teacher who told her, you should never speak in public, you should get a desk job. Well, now Lisa is one of the most sought-after motivational speakers in the world. And that little young mother who had only $12 to her name is now worth millions of dollars today. That was Lisa Nichols. Google her. You'll see just how amazing she is. Well, I want to challenge you with the same thing. Jim Rohn said, you can't hire somebody else to do your push-ups. Well, you can't, have other people hunt your dream for you. You have to do it yourself. It's something you have to become your own best cheerleader. Because here's the thing. You're not going to have everybody believing in you, telling you, yes, your dreams are possible. You've heard from God. You have to remember, God hasn't necessarily told them what he's told you about your future. So don't wait for everybody to come along and encourage you and tell you you're not crazy. They may say you're crazy. That's okay. Go hunt for your dream. Do what God's called you to do. Don't stop and settle when you know God has more for your life. So, from Paris, France, I want you to know I am cheering you on. And just to help you out this month, I am giving away Chapter 1 of my book, Imagine Big. This is going to help you stretch your imagination, start thinking bigger, start setting goals for your life. Give yourself permission to dream. So all you got to do is click the link in the description and I will send you Chapter 1 absolutely free. I hope that inspires you and it helps you to go hunt your dream. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, so I can keep you motivated to live your dreams. Au revoir from Paris, France. I see means something added to something good.